Ooh, another white boy with a podcast. Pronouns, Jim Bro. Another white boy with a podcast. You want to see the video? It went viral.
Hi Gains Gurus and welcome to TMGP, the Muscle Growth Podcast, episode 42. I am your host Roscoe and today we are welcoming Haroun Pietersen onto the show for part 2 of his 2-part series. Hailing from Mitchell's Plain in Cape Town, Haroun is a standout figure in South African powerlifting. Despite only beginning his competitive journey in 2023, he has rapidly ascended the ranks to become both the 2024 African Powerlifting Champion and the Commonwealth Powerlifting Champion. At 37 years old and weighing around 104 kilograms, Pietersen has achieved remarkable lifts, a squat of 322.5 kilograms, a bench of 217.5 kilograms, and a deadlift of 285 kilograms. His journey from local gyms to international platforms is a testament to his dedication and resilience. Beyond his personal achievements, Pietersen is passionate about uplifting his community and inspiring others through his story. He actively shares his experiences and insights on his Instagram account at HarounLiftsSA. Haroun Pietersen stands as a rising star in South African powerlifting, making waves at the international level with impressive performances in the under 105 kilogram weight class. At the 2024 World Classic Championships, Pietersen delivered a strong showing, posting a 707.5 kilogram total and setting new personal bests, showcasing not only his raw strength but also his strategic approach to competition. His journey, beginning as a first-year competitor at 37 years old, highlights his dedication and rapid progress, making him a notable figure in South Africa's growing powerlifting scene and a source of inspiration for aspiring athletes across the country. Additionally, Pietersen was nominated for the 2025 World Games in China, a prestigious international competition often regarded as the Olympics of powerlifting, where he will compete against the world's best lifters. This nomination signals his continued presence on the global stage in 2025. Get ready to be inspired by Haroun's remarkable journey, his insights on powerlifting training, and his mission to uplift others both in and out of the gym. In today's episode, we dive into a wide range of insights. Some of the topics include explanation of raw versus equipped lifting, lifting equipment rundown, Haroun's favorite accessory lifts, leg press fun with all the plates in the gym, tips for powerlifting coaches and people wanting to powerlift, the importance of longevity in the sport, the ability for people to improve even as they age, health benefits of resistance training and strength training as one ages, the South African powerlifting scene, financial challenges for powerlifting as a sport and other barriers to entry, and so much more. Get ready for a truly informative episode. Quick shameless self-plug, I'm uploading consistently on Reps with Roscoe on YouTube and Instagram, so check that out for some epic fitness edutainment content. A little disclaimer, this show does not contain medical advice. The views and opinions expressed by guests on the Muscle Growth Podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect my beliefs or the stance of the podcast. While we aim to provide valuable insights and information, it's important to approach all topics with critical thinking. I encourage you to do your own research, consider multiple perspectives, and form your own conclusions. Healthy discussion is always welcome, and I'm happy to engage with listeners in the YouTube comment section to continue the conversation. Lastly, don't forget to follow us on all major social media platforms, including Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and X. Find us at the Muscle Growth Podcast and myself at Reps with Roscoe.
Thank you. That was very thorough for the periodization and the blocks. So thank you for that. And then I was wondering, can you please educate me and maybe some of the listeners? I've never done any equipped training, so I don't actually know like the difference between a vest and a suit versus having a sling on the bench press, sleeves versus wraps. Like when you said, for example, for the bench press, you have a vest, is that the same as the suit? And then do you also have a sling? Or is that a different competition entirely?
So the slings are applied in a different federation. So the IPF equipped, you use a deadlift suit you get a squat suit, and then a bench press vest.
And they're all
So
different.
it's all single ply. Yes, they're all
You
different
have to
pieces of
buy a
equipment.
different one for
So
squat, bench, and deadlift.
that's that's correct. Yes, so
Ew.
that's the expensive part as well, because these things are not cheap, and
No.
there's only a certain brands that are approved by the IPF. So you can only use approved brands in the IPF, and one of the brands that I'm using at the moment is called Titan. It's an American brand, and they're really good in the equipment that they make, and it's all single ply. So that's also the variation. So in the IPF, you're only allowed to use single ply uh, equipped suits and equipped vests. So you also get multiply, which is applicable in like the strong men use multiply suits for the deadlifting, and then you also have the sling, which is applied in different federations. They're not applicable in the IPF. And then you get the knee wraps, which is also variations of approved equipment that can only be used within the IPF environment. So there's only a limited amount of companies that make this approved equipment, and that's also why it becomes so expensive, because it's not readily available, and it has to be approved and tested by the regulation, and meet the standards of the IPF in terms of the competition and the support that it provides the body. So yeah, those three pieces of equipment are the most costly. The bench vest, you're looking at about anywhere between 3,000 to 8,000 rand, depending on the brand you go with. A equipped squat suit, you're looking anywhere between 3.5 to about 12,000 rand, depending on the brand you go with. And then similar with the deadlift suit, it's not a cheap acquisition. So a lot of people do the equipped lifting where they actually do raw lifting instead of buying the equipment and competing with but that always obviously gives a different edge to an athlete who is using the equipment, because it does tremendously support the body as well as protect the body during these heavy lifts, because that's the one thing that it does is it creates a little bit of a spring mechanism for you, especially with the knee wraps versus the sleeves. I think that's the biggest difference is there's a recoil. So one of the things with sleeves that you won't experience with the knee wraps is that you won't say that there's not enough weight on your back when you're using sleeves. With the knee wraps, there's literally a threshold that you need to hit before you can actually hit depth, which is one of the weirdest and also coolest experiences when it comes to the equipped lifting, is that there's so much recoil in those wraps that you struggle to hit depth. So for me, I think I have to be over about 300 kilos, 305 kilos, somewhere in that region, for me to actually feel like I can hit depth with the wraps on. So getting used to a lighter weight and getting flexible through these blocks at the moment has been the challenge for me, because the weight is technically too light for me to get down with, and that's a little bit of a scary experience, but also I think sobering, because you kind of find yourself in a situation where you know that the only reason you're not getting to depth is because there's not enough weight on your back.
I think that's a problem that a lot of people would love to have. But what do you suggest for people that can't afford? So first off, the equipment, like we said, is super expensive, and then also maybe a coach, or it's not logistically or feasible. What do you suggest to these kind of people?
So look, I'm fortunate. So my coach actually has second-hand equipment that I was able to use during my introduction to the sport, and I think that's the most difficult part when switching between raw and equipped, or switching from raw to the equipped lifting is finding somebody who actually knows the changeover and understands the difference between the two sports. Um, so coaching, uh, I don't really see a sidestep on that one. It becomes an expensive exercise, and to have a proper guideline, and it's probably and probably to actually have a coach that has experience within the discipline. I think that's the most difficult part. But you can go and research. There are quite a few reference coaches that give tips and advice on how to set up and how to get started, but you're basically stepping from raw to equipped. So the raw powerlifting is the baseline that you work on in the first place, and then you switching to the equipped. It's a matter of understanding what the equipped does, or what the equipment itself changes for the lift. So a lot of the challenges I would say for the bench press, if I could start there, is the vest doesn't allow you to move like you would when you're doing a normal bench press. So because of the compression and the contraction when wearing an equipped vest, it it basically bruises you, and that is something that's unavoidable, which is something that a lot of people wouldn't think because of the bar moving so slowly, and there's a lot of variations that come in. And also one of the scarier parts of the equipped vest is um, it can actually throw the weight, which is one of the scarier things that you experience in the equipped lifting, is that it literally flings the bar at your face if you don't control it, and that's one of the difficult parts when it comes to lifting equipped. Uh, yeah, so that spring mechanism that it creates when you lifting or when you're descending the weight to your chest, and you apply pressure as soon as you get the start command and you push up, it's almost like a spring lever, if I could put it that way. So it creates like a lot of tension, and then all of a sudden that tension just becomes a recoil, and that's how they equip lifting it, and being able to control that, and not jumping or springing off your chest and hitting a stagnant block is kind of what you have to learn when it comes to the bench press, especially. It's a lot of technique and a lot of patience that comes with it. Though we want to move faster, sometimes that moving a little bit faster throws the whole lift off and you fail, or you end up getting stuck with the weight, where if you maintain your angle and your drive. So there's a lot of technical angles that you work as well with the equip, because the equipment restricts your range of movement quite tremendously as well. So getting that line right and getting that drive from the legs all the way through the chest into the bench press is also a timing challenge that you receive when it comes to the discipline of equip. So there's a lot of different variations that come into play that your coach kind of prepares you with. But when you're doing it yourself, a lot of people just do the raw lifting and don't put on the equipment and compete in the equipped environment. But in actual fact, if I were to put it into perspective with the raw bench this year, I did 170 and my biggest equipped bench for this year was 230. So that margin of 60 kilograms is the disadvantage that you have when you're not putting on equipment in an equipped environment. So that just goes to show how much of a difference that equipment makes in terms of your performance in the sport. So going from 170 on a raw deadlift on a raw bench press to a 230 equipped bench press, that just shows you the difference. And to put it into perspective, the 230 moved easier than the 170.
Wow, that's amazing. And then you mentioned a few things now. What are your top safety tips for people lifting heavy, especially alone?
I think is the one of the biggest things is check your safety height in terms of your setup. So when bench pressing heavily, a lot of commercial gyms don't have safeties, which is a standard thing that comes in powerlifting racks. It's a safety arm that's next to the bench press that you set up and you check is it actually going to hold the or stop the bar from hitting your neck. So that's kind of how you set up in the beginning, is you actually measure and see how high you need to set your safety rack versus your bench. So if you do fail a lift, then you are able to get out from under the bar, and the bar doesn't actually crush you. So in the powerlifting world, the Leica racks that we use in competition, they have settings for safety racks. They have settings for bench height and setting for squat heights. So before competition, we are actually supposed to fill out those heights into a sheet, which is the safety guideline that needs to be completed for every athlete, so that they can have that information when setting up for your bench press. So in a commercial gym, unfortunately, you won't have access to that. But some of the squat racks in the commercial gym have the safety platform that you can set up when you're putting a bench there. So I guess that would be a little bit of sacrilege in a commercial gym, but it's the safest way to do heavy lifting in a commercial space, where you don't necessarily have somebody there to aid you and to spot you. is to actually set up safety heights and measure those safety heights to make sure that when you actually fail a lift and you are able to put the bar down onto the safeties and get out underneath the bar safely and re-rack it into a position to attempt again. And it also helps with pin press style training as well, where you can use that to improve strength. But I think one of the essentials for safety, if you don't have access to the powerlifting equipment that's actually got these features to protect you, is to use a rack that has adjustable safety pins that can protect you should you fail a bench press. And with a deadlift, setting up the rack so that you can actually drop the bar safely into a seated position without hurting yourself or putting yourself at risk in terms of a squat. For the deadlift, it's a little bit easier because you just stop pulling and you won't really have a problem.
You might go back down though.
That's why they call it a deadlift.
Yeah.
So you might find yourself seeing some stars and stripes there.
Yeah.
So that's the fun part about the deadlift is that you could actually find yourself blacking out from time to time, but that just shows that you are really pushing your limits. But also try and have somebody around in the commercial space if you know a friend that's in the same environment, tell them to just keep an eye out just as a safety precaution if should you need any attention from the staff in the immediate requirements of an emergency or etc, then you at least have a immediate backup plan should something go wrong. We don't want anything to go wrong during training, but sometimes accidents tend to happen, and that's the best way to take care of ourselves is to actually just have a little bit of preparedness going into it.
Have you passed out a few times on heavy lifts, squats, deadlifts?
Fortunately for myself, I haven't. I have seen white and black spots before. That's
Yeah,
about as far as it went.
the
So
stars.
going for a heavy squat and coming out and just feeling completely dizzy and having to hold on to my coach after a deadlift. That's happened to me before, but I haven't actually had a blackout or a loss of consciousness. Thank goodness so
Yeah,
far. I think I need to touch some wood here
yeah.
somewhere just to make sure that I maintain that. But yeah, for the bench press even, it's quite, especially with the vest on, it's quite a lot of cranial pressure as well. So you feel a lot of pressure in the head. So you tend to get a lot of red eye
Yeah.
activity as well as high
So you have burst
blood pressure.
in your eye, vessels or not?
No, I haven't,
Okay.
but I've actually just got like super red eyes from the bench press as well as the deadlift and the squats when the pressure just gets so high and you're fighting a failure and you actually manage to power through it. It does get quite taxing. And I think for my sake as well, I haven't experienced any nosebleeds. I've had a couple of our athletes that train with me where they've experienced it, working through and pressing through that failure or refusing to fail for that matter, and just forcing that rep back up. You get those pressure moments where you actually do experience nosebleeds and things like that. It's not irregular in the sport, but yeah, do also monitor yourself and check, go for regular health checks and make sure that you're not suffering from anything like hypertension because that can also cause dizzy spells and cause unconscious accidents.
For sure. So what are your favorite accessory lifts to the three main ones?
So I think for all in all, I think my favorite accessory lifts are dumbbell presses and military press. So those are my two favorites of the accessories. So I like to do the seated dumbbell. I get up to like 50, 60 kilogram dumbbells for the seated shoulder press. And then for the military press with the barbell, I like to use the safety rack in the squat rack, which is not very liked by a lot of people. It's quite frowned upon to do presses in the squat rack, but it's one of my favorites to do is to do the seated military press and a standing military press as well, just to kind of also build the back strength when it comes to the bench press, and also just build the shoulder stability when it comes to the heavy bench pressing. I think that's also one of the advantages that comes with using a vest. It protects the shoulders pretty well, so you don't feel as much shoulder pressure as you would when you do a normal bench. And also just adapting grips that allows you to kind of open up and widen and get used to different setups. And I think the other one in the leg drive department, I'm quite a fan of the leg press as well, though I haven't been doing it very often. So I get to have some fun there. It doesn't really count in the powerlifting world, but I do get well over 600-700 kilos sometimes, depending on how I feel on the day. And I just do 5 reps at the peak, just to feel out the weight and also to work on back strength. So just getting that drive off the and also using full range of motion when doing a leg press is quite fun because there's actually a stopper and it prevents you from getting crushed, and it also gives you a little bit of fun. Sometimes people frown upon it when you bounce the weight a little bit, but it makes it a little bit fun to actually do that kind of heavy leg press and just ripping out that kind of weight. People also look at you like, why are you taking the entire gym's weight and putting it on one machine? It's a lot of work to put all the weight on there, if I'm quite honest. But it's quite one of those fun exercises you get to do to kind of I wouldn't say flex, but it's one of those things where you kind of go like, okay, maybe I am strong.
And there's a lot of work to take it off as well.
Now that's the fun part. Is that's your deload, like your
Yeah.
warm down workout after doing a leg workout. Then I also like to do a drop set on the leg press. So I would go up to 500, say for example, 500 kilos, and I drop 2 plates per set, and then go till failure until the machine is empty. So at the same time, I unrack the entire machine as well as get a proper leg wobble workout, because when you get out of that leg press machine, you're like a newborn giraffe wobbling all over the place. Nothing works. I end up just actually lying on my stomach for like 5 minutes just so my quads can get some recovery that I'm shaking. And I think that's also part of the fun and games, is pushing yourself to failure every now and again.
Yeah.
It's different.
That's hysterical, that imagery for the giraffe. And then, what are, so let's first go with this one. What are you're 36, right? 37.
37 this year. 38
38
later
later
this
this year. Okay, so at 37, you're still getting stronger. What mindset keeps you pushing at a high level? And then what are your goals right now for both raw and equipped lifting?
So I think for the getting stronger part, I think I am starting to feel that recovery taking longer, and that's the thing that I need to keep and be mindful of, is getting enough rest and making sure that I actually allow myself to recover. And then still getting stronger at this age. I think that this is one of those things where it's that just that peak of male performance when it comes to sports. A lot of you'll find that from 35 to 40, a lot of the bodybuilders are also hitting like the world peak level. I think for powerlifting, it just continues as long as you maintain and you are able to stay injury free up until 45 to 50. Like one of the athletes in our gym now, he's competing in Master 2 World Champs now in October in Cape Town, South Africa. It's actually happening. So he's going to be competing in the Masters, and he's actually going to be trying to break world records at his age still. So it just goes to show that as long as you maintain and you look after the body, you're able to create longevity within the sport instead of running that sprint every time to try and be at peak continuously. You're actually able to continuously grow on a gradual pace and improve from time to time, and it also improve the strength and stability as well as the health side of things. Because maintaining this heavy lifting, it also maintains the body's ability to recuperate, and also naturally boosts the level of testosterone in the body that sometimes tends to die off in the males over 35 going into 45. So it also helps your body to naturally boost itself and to maintain its capability in recovery and getting stronger. So I think I'm still going to be getting stronger for at least maybe another 20 years, I hope.
Well, that's exciting. I can't wait to see what
um,
you're doing at 60. That's wild. That's very cool. Are you coming down to watch the Masters?
I wish I can, but I'll be traveling in
Okay.
August to China, so that's kind of going to be
Okay.
where my resources will be tied in. But if in October I manage to find myself in possession of some air tickets, I might just come to Cape Town to come and watch the
Okay, we must
Masters.
get a gym session, and when you're down in Cape Town, let me know.
That'll be
Oh,
awesome, man.
definitely. And then, lastly, for the kind of main part of this episode, what final or parting words of wisdom do you have for someone who wants to start powerlifting but is maybe intimidated or afraid to do so?
I think one of the best things to do for yourself is to actually remember that it's not you versus anybody else. Don't try and measure yourself against anybody. When starting a powerlifting journey, it's always going to be you versus you. And for starting out, I think for myself, I was training in the gym, lifting heavy for quite a while and pushing myself and my body's limits, but not without competing on a level or saying that, look, I need to go and actually see if I'm capable of doing this. But for a lot of the new powerlifters, I think just start with the basics. Don't don't try and do too many ego lifting activities when it comes to the basics. Stick to the basics, stick to squatting what you're capable of. Rather work a full range of motion with a lighter weight instead of trying to show off with a heavy weight and end up risking an injury or a lifelong what's appropriate word? I would say instead of risking a lifelong injury or a lifelong recovery process that could hinder or impact your life for the rest of your life, rather be safe and work within parameters and try and if you are going to push your limits, to have some assistance, get a friend to help just for safety purposes because we see a lot of freak accidents in the powerlifting environment, especially when it comes to young lifters being pushed by coaches and they're not understanding the risk that they're putting these athletes and these young lives under. I think it was a young Asian athlete that was squatting, and the coach forced the young athlete to squat and ended up collapsing the entire spine and passing away because of squatting a weight that she wasn't ready for in terms of her body. And that is also where we need to be mindful as athletes and as coaches in the sport that we need to gradually approach these milestones and these growth patterns when it comes to understanding body's limitations and your body's capability and giving you time to develop and developing yourself from a building point to being able to compete or not compete but to better yourself in stages. Try to give yourself that time and give yourself the opportunity to grow over time and not rush into trying to be the best in the very beginning. A lot of the athletes today, like if you look at the Sheffield lineup this year, the winner of Sheffield this year, Cal, the Belgian, I think he was the typical time longevity spent in the sport to lead as an example for the rest of the athletes to follow is that he's been doing powerlifting for 20 plus years, and after 20 plus years in the sport he's actually hit his peak and he's broken the limit when it came to the 66 kg class in the world history. He broke the world record excessively well, and just goes to show that after 20 years of time put in and 20 years of training sessions and building blocks, he found himself at the peak of his sport at his age. And he's also, I think, now 37. And at that age, to win a major competition such as Sheffield, where it's based on how much of a percentage you break the world record by in order to achieve a position within the rankings. I think for somebody who's supposed to be going into a master's level now, he's still showing characteristics of a young lifter. And I think that's also where the longevity aspect of it comes in, and giving yourself the time to build up to becoming the best possible athlete you can be, and not worrying about other athletes and their progress and the way they train and program. It's just, I think, with staying in your lane is the appropriate term to use. It's like focus on you, and gradually you'll see you improving from where you were to where you want to be.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Those final words of wisdom. Really appreciate it. And that'll conclude the main kind of core of the show. And now, if you're keen, let's have a little discussion about South African powerlifting and some of the dynamics, some of the stories. Are you keen to chat just very briefly about that?
Sure.
Awesome. So, what's powerlifting in SA comes with a lot of costs. You've already broken down some of them. I know we mentioned previously about on a separate recording that South Africa doesn't actually help its athletes that much, and everything's basically out of pocket. I'll just run over some of the points I want to talk about. Maybe you can kind of integrate them all into one story. So the cost from South Africa point of view is one of them. The other one is why do you think so many talented South Africans drop out? It's probably again related to the first point. And you've been through the ups and downs of SA powerlifting. Any crazy or standout stories from the federation? I know we started this episode with a story right at the beginning. And then what's the current state of facilities and access for powerlifters in South Africa? Again, probably ties into the first one. And then lastly, you've competed worldwide. What's the difference in vibe and support between South African competitions and international meets?
Look, I think you're touching on some vital points when it comes to affordability in the sport. One of the biggest challenges for South African athletes is to actually get something simple which is required to compete in an IPF standard, which is the singlet. I think that is the most difficult thing when it comes to powerlifting, because it has to be an IPF approved singlet that you have to use on a national level. On a provincial level, you can't get away with using any singlet. Doesn't matter the brand. But once you hit the national competition standard, I think that's one of the most difficult things is you have to be able to afford IPF approved equipment, and which is generally your SPD product, which is now one of the few products that is allowed to be used within IPF. So things like that, knee sleeves is going to cost you 3,000 rand. A pair of wrist straps is going to cost you 1,500 to 2,000 rand. A a singlet is going to cost you anywhere between 1,200 to 2,500 rand. So that is just the basics that you need to compete in a powerlifting meet. That's notwithstanding all of the other accessories, the travel costs, and the affiliation fees, as well as the entry fees for each competition. So it becomes a very expensive exercise. Every year you have to affiliate to the IPF and the SAPF, for example. That's a fee you have to pay. Every competition you do, a provincial competition is an entry fee. A national competition is an entry fee.
Coaches,
You have
gyms,
to first meet them. Yeah, so the coaching fees is
nutrition.
completely separate, because that becomes continuous. Nutrition is one of those things that becomes a very expensive exercise if you can't afford to provide for your requirements in terms of dietary requirements, in terms of intake of calories, all of those things. The actual facilities, if you're unable to pay for a gym membership, for example, if you're unable to pay for a coach who has their own gym facilities, those are all extra expenses that you face with when you are entering this environment. um, I think that as a baseline just tells a story for a raw lifter. Then you look at the different discipline, which is now the equipped, and then that becomes another 40,000 rand, for as an example, just to be able to get the equipment to compete in this discipline. And
The
and that
barrier to
is
entry is
that's
too
the
high.
kind of financial challenges. So you find that underprivileged people won't be able to participate in the sport, even if they were to be one of the strongest or best athletes to ever brace the sport, but they won't be able to participate just by these restrictions. So in the Western Cape, there's quite a few federations, or not federations, but clubs coming up now that are able to give access to youngsters and to help them actually perform and to host meets where youngsters can come and participate without the equipment and to get introduced to the environment. It's a good benchmark to start off with in terms of getting more people involved in the sport, more people in the environment, and more young people coming through the ranks to represent on a provincial, national, and international level. Because one of the challenges for the sport is because of low participation. There's less competition, and there's less development in terms of the standard across the international and national levels for our country and our continent. So I think one of the bigger challenges is the affordability, and then also like the international standard itself, it becomes an individual's responsibility. It's no longer South Africa saying, okay, I'm going to pay for airfare, I'm going to pay for accommodation, I'm going to pay for equipment. So even your South African tracksuit that you need to purchase on a national level, that comes out of your own pocket as an athlete. Your South African branded bag, if you want one, that has South African Protea colors. It's an official. The you earned your South African colors to be able to make this purchase, but it's a privilege in the sport to be able to have these things. Um, I think on an international level, you then look at all of the travel expenses. So you look at your accommodation, your flights, your food, and leisure during those periods of travel, visa costs, all of these things become the athlete's responsibility. Fortunately, now, because of the magnitude of the event, such as World Games, because there's a team of sports South African representatives, not just the powerlifting that's participating. Now we've got SASCOC backing this particular trip, where they would be able to do things such as flights, accommodation, and accommodating, and also doing a kit sponsor for the South African athletes that are going to be participating in the World Games. But it's still not an equipment sponsor. It's just the South African colors kit. So things like a tracksuit, a t-shirt, a pair of shorts, a pair of shoes. That's what they'll kit you with. But your responsibility for equipment such as your suit and your belts, your everything pertaining to the equipped lifting, it still becomes an athlete expense. It's not sponsored by the country to say, okay, here's an official kit to say here's this African branded equipment for you to go and represent the country. But like in other sports where they would have that official branded kits for every team to go and represent the country, showing that they're actually representing the country. So that's I think where the other international standard athletes is set apart, where they have sponsorship from brand houses such as SPD. They come in and they actually kit the entire team with branded equipment. They sponsor them with knee sleeves, belts, t-shirts, singlets. All of the whole kit is completely branded by country sponsorship and by brand sponsorship, because they have agreements and deals with these countries where they actually sponsor the entire team that goes to international level competition. And I think that's where the standard differs and varies from country to country. So a country like Great Britain, they've got a full sponsor from SPD, because SPD is actually a British brand. So that's the kind of support that these international teams get in terms of the sport, as well as in our sponsorship. The athletes get paid salaries from the government. It's not just a matter of you going to go and represent your country and you have to foot the ball. They actually get paid they get paid a salary, they get paid for traveling, they get paid allowances, all of these benefits when it comes to different countries. Every federation at the, or rather affiliated country in terms of the IPF, it's entirely up to the country and how they support the athletes. So a lot of the other countries, they have that backing and they have that platform and support from the community, as well as the governmental side of the sports and arts and culture in the countries where they have that backing. In South Africa, unfortunately, we don't have that backing, because we're not a major or seen as a mainstream sport that's actually going to generate revenue or create awareness around South African sports development. And that's actually just where it comes down to uh, the basics of is it going to make money or is it not going to make money? And that's kind of unfortunately where powerlifting falls into a category of a niche sport, and it's not necessarily a commercial sport.
Sure. No, like you said, if it doesn't make money, it doesn't get seen, and that's it's a bit hectic. And then, yeah, lastly, the any crazy stories from any of the federation sides, and you've competed worldwide. What's the difference in the vibe and support between SA comps and international meets?
I think that the community on an international standard, it just goes to show how amazing the powerlifting sport actually is. There's a lot more togetherness, a lot more unity in terms of the international standard. You see that at the world level competitions where the support and also the love that it gets shown to each other in terms of the athletes, in terms of the coaching, and in terms of in powerlifting, we also have athletes that we see on these social media platforms we have never met in real life, and you actually get to meet these individuals. I was privileged to meet Jesus Olivares. I was privileged to meet Russell O'Hiri from the States. I was special, which was also special for me. I got to meet Ashton, the 105 kg champion. I got to meet the 105 the 105 kg world record deadlift holder from the UK. And like these are special athletes that you see and you kind of look up to, and meeting them in person and realizing how humble they are in terms of their mannerism and how open they are to actually having a conversation and just taking a photograph. You have those fan moments. But at the same time, at a later stage, you're competing against these guys in the same environment. Just that experience also, it just goes to show it doesn't matter how big a lot of the athletes are, they always maintain a humble state of nature, and they always have this kindness about them, even though they're probably one of the strongest beings in their weight class and category in the world, and some of the strongest humans in the world, but still have that kind nature and that down to earth environment that all powerlifting athletes seem to embody when it comes to an international level. And I think that also just shows what a good and an amazing sport it is. It doesn't matter by the time we're competing against each other and we're actually rivaling, but as soon as we're out of that rival environment, it becomes a more supportive and like even guidance offered from different athletes and different coaches after a meet. They'll actually give you some guidance and tips and tell you a few things that they picked up during your meet that they think you should pay attention to. So that's also like kind of the heartwarming effect that comes from it. Look, there were a couple of wild stories recently. Where there was a resignation in the IPF ranks. The president of the IPF resigned not too long ago, and there's a bit of uh, a he said, she said. Nobody kind of knows exactly what went down, but apparently it happened in South Africa. There was a female involved and a pregnancy, so there was a resignation from the IPF official because of it, which was one of the wildest stories of 2024 that happened and unveiled itself in 2025. So yeah, the IPF on the international standard has got a new acting president until they've instated and voted in a new president. And then the other wild change was the knee sleeve ban that happened. So all of the big brand houses, that is Inza, uh, Titan, Hansu Power. There's quite a few of the stiff knee sleeves, is what they call them in the powerlifting industry. They've been banned from use in the IPF, so now people are no longer allowed to use these knee sleeves in competition. As of August 2025, you are no longer to be used in competition, and now SPD is running the monopoly because they are one of the few brands that still hold accreditation within the knee sleeve environment. So automatically, everybody assumed, and also the price indication of SPD all of a sudden putting up the price on the knee sleeves a week after the announcement kind of doesn't sit well with all of the powerlifting community. But who are we? We don't approve these kinds of regulations. It gets controlled by the IPF. So that's also another thing that we kind of think there's a little bit of politics happening in the IPF, and that's also partly why there was a resignation from the IPF president.
It sounds like it's a amalgamation of a few things. Okay, cool. No, well, that's basically the show. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. What a fantastic episode, and I really look forward to seeing you crush it on the stage in 2025 and beyond.
Sweet, man. I appreciate it. But I will also try and share some link because there will be some footage links, and also it will be televised. But I'm not sure which broadcast channel is going to be airing the World Games in China. So yeah, I'll definitely share that with you. Looking forward to sharing a bit about the journey after we get back from World Games.
Super excited. Hopefully in person. Let's see.
Of course, man.
All the best. Cheers, cheers.
Thanks, Laska. Ciao.
Thank you for tuning in to the Muscle Growth Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating and a quick review. It helps us grow and reach more people just like you. Don't forget to follow us on all major social media platforms, including Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and X. Find us at the Muscle Growth Podcast and at Reps with Roscoe. For more insights, exclusive content, and full episodes, visit themusclegrowthpodcast.com. Your support truly makes a difference, so please like, share, comment, and follow. We're grateful for every bit of it. Until next time, keep pushing your limits and staying focused on getting bigger, stronger, and better.